Well, I want to thank you all for attending this very first workshop of COMTRA. It's a wonderful program in our IBSG organization, and I think that this is going to be one of the more prolific programs that we have out there. This is going to be our first workshop on institutional relationships between conflict minerals and geopolity. So I'm very glad that many of you attended. This is going to be a very robust discussion, and I'm glad that we have the expertise of two professors who have worked with conflict minerals before. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Sarita Cargas, and maybe I can let you introduce yourself in a little bit, and Dr. Jamal Martin. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to pass on the introductions in a moment to Mr. Reed and Mr. Acosta, our program managers. However, before we do that, I would like to move around the room just for the purposes of our video. We have circulated an AV consent form. For those of you that have not looked at it, please take a moment and sign it. But I would like you at this moment, and we'll begin with Lindsay, to introduce yourself and why you're here.
My name is Lindsay Rowland. I am here because I want to learn more about the Conflict Minerals Group, and I'm interested in this area. So,
thank you.
My name is also Lindsay Lane, and I'm here because I've been interested in conflict minerals since high school, and I want to learn more about the geopolitical implications in institutions.
Hi, my name is Yuka Kawahito. I don't know nothing about conflict minerals, but I'm very much interested in human trafficking, and there's some connection to it, so I'm so looking forward to this meeting.
Thank you.
I'm Angelina Sanchez, and I'm actually taking business services, globalization, and human rights class, and that's how I became interested in conflict minerals.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Sarita Cargas. My research area is human rights, and right now I'm teaching a course on globalization and human rights. And so we look at the issue of resource curse and conflict minerals.
My name is Evan Reed. I'm the co-project manager of COMTRA. My concentration is international management. My interest in conflict minerals began with the Kimberley process and the Bureau's control over the diamond market. I am equally interested in the cultural heritage aspects, the global cultural heritage aspects of conflict minerals and triangular trade.
My name is Felipe Acosta. I'm an international management major and marketing as well. My interest in conflict minerals arose, I'm from Colombia. It's a country very rich in natural resources. So since I was there, I've always been very interested in how to manage those natural resources, and then with the opportunity to actually create the program for COMTRA arose, that's when my interest really popped up, and I feel like we're going to have a really interesting workshop today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Jamal Martin, and I teach in family and community medicine, where I teach global health and primary health care, as well as epidemiology and health equity. And I also teach in Africana studies. And so with my work in Africana studies, basically Africana studies is African world history. So I cover a myriad of different issues that are related to the continent, and historically, from its origins, from the origins of civilization to the present day. Thank you.
I'm Roxanne Blair. I'm here to learn more about the conflict minerals, as well as kind of get more about the theory behind the geopolitical trade relations and international implications.
My name is Sarah Sala, and I'm actually here because I wanted to learn more about identity politics.
My name is Earl Shank, and I guess my real concern with it is the environmental impact that conflict minerals have on just the areas that they impact the most.
Absolutely. Before I pass on the introduction, the remainder of the introduction to our co-program managers, I want to acknowledge that this workshop and the intention of this workshop is to help our COMTRA members understand what an institutional analysis is and how it serves to improve the dialogue and the discourse on conflict minerals. As we all know, institutions are varied. There are many different types of institutions: cultural, economic, social, political. Certain ideologies become institutionalized and certain types of behavior become institutionalized. So one of the purposes of being here and having this discussion is trying to understand who the major players are in conflict minerals and how we begin to define conflict minerals through the various institutions that we encounter that have either discussed it or participate or are complicit in conflict minerals. And so by understanding these institutions, we can begin to understand how actors interrelate with one another. And this becomes one of the opening moments, an entry point for us to understand conflict minerals from a geopolitical perspective in terms of polity. This will include identity politics. This does include cultural value systems. This includes NGOs. This includes nation states. So as a precursor to this, our wonderful program managers gave us all a homework assignment and asked us to think about institutions that are involved or complicit in conflict minerals. For these purposes, we're going to have a discussion that's going to take the better part of 1 hour to 1 hour and 15 minutes. I will serve as moderator or air traffic controller behind the camera. So if anybody has a question, please simply raise your hand. I will call on you at that point, and I will direct the camera in your direction if you have a point to make. Otherwise, the remainder of the conversation will be led by Mr. Acosta and Mr. Reed. So I will begin by passing it off to Mr. Acosta.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. So before we get started, we just really wanted to, this is going to be a very interactive workshop. It's not going to be a presentation. But just for this part, I'm going to really show you and explain to you the definition of conflict minerals. We've been coming up with Evan, Dr. Montoya, and I after the research we've done, just so you get a clear understanding of how we're heading this project towards. So first of all, conflict minerals, we really see it as it's an extracted and relatively non-renewable natural resource that pretty much creates a cultural and political unrest within a political economy. Within a political economy, we mean either a nation, we mean a government, a country. So that's how we're trying to gear it towards structure-wise. As you know, this conflict minerals creates a lot of unrest, as I'm mentioning, and political instability. And one main factor we think is in the base of the problems is the armed conflict and diplomatic conflict it creates. So as many of you know, this conflict minerals, like all its illegality, create pretty much guerrilla groups, social disturbances, many rapes, violence among all these countries. And as you've seen through the video that we showed to you in the email and many other different documents, right now the very main region being affected by this is Africa, but obviously around the world, as you see later in our map, there's many different nations that have natural resources and that could potentially be affected by what we and many other different people in this research have defined as, the natural curse, which is how a country that has natural resources aren't really able to leverage them correctly, and it just becomes a curse. So this is something Evan will later touch on a little bit more further with his questions he's going to pose. So right now, there isn't really a formal classification of what conflict minerals are, the type of minerals. So this is another interesting question we found. Like, why isn't there really formal classification of what these minerals are? For now, there's 5 main ones, in which I'll give you just the scientific names. The first one is called columbine talentite, which is coltan. And tantalum is extracted from this mineral, and basically what this mineral does, it is for ignition systems, anti-brake systems, and it goes into cell phones, which is going to be a big player. The second one is called cassiterite. It's an ore needed to produce tin, and tin also plays into mobile phones and electronics, and it's used for circuit boards and different types of electronic equipment. The third qualification that's been given is the wolframite. So wolframite, again, is another mineral that goes into electronic devices, and it also goes into clubs for golf hits, and it's one that is extracted heavily. The fourth one we have is gold, which I'm sure most of you know the uses. Besides, jewelry and electronics, it also helps for the coating for wires, so most of your cell phones actually have some of that ingredient in it, element. And the fifth one is diamonds, which, it's what caused initially the conflict mineral type of surge, like in popularity. And all of these definitions are supported by various institutions. We have different American organizations that have been trying to type of classify them, but it's not good because they're not really formalized. It's a classification that hasn't been given. So it's a question we wanted to address, like, why do you think this happens? And the question part we'll be addressing it comes later. So finally, after these classifications I've been giving you, another question we have is, as we said, who gets to define a conflict mineral? When is this designation given to a mineral? When does this happen? And who reports it and evaluates it is another big question we have. So now you know the definition we're basing this project off for conflict minerals, and Evan will now begin with the questions we've been creating and that you can see in the content program curriculum for the first workshop. It's a series of questions that will help us just kind of develop this workshop for today. So Evan, if you just want to begin with the questions.
The questions related to the specific